It's always, and this has been true for me for many years, if not since the beginning of my tenure as a minister, the journey that is involved in putting words together and thoughts and ideas together to share with you. But this one in particular was most interesting to me, and I want to share it because it's my prayer that as I share it, you'll be able to give yourself license to keep on growing, keep on expanding. Here's what it is. I was in meditation. This was back around the first of the year. And for some reason, I remembered a talk that I gave. It was sometime in 2020 during COVID. So it was just me and a microphone and an empty room, which in itself was quite an experience. Some of you remember that those were the circumstances we traversed through at that time. And I was trying to deliver talks on subjects that I thought would be especially relevant given what we were all moving through at that time. So I chose to speak on the subject of spiritual healing. And having remembered that talk, and when I left Miami almost 3 years ago now, I didn't bring any of my talk notes with me because it was just like I wanted to move into a new chapter. So I let that all go. But I felt so compelled with regard to this one talk. Actually, I thought, if I could recreate this talk, it would save me a lot of time and energy and effort. I wouldn't have to work so hard to put together a Sunday morning talk, which was a complete misnomer, because I went into YouTube and I found that talk on spiritual healing, and I transcribed it at my computer into an outline. And as I was transcribing it, I was surprised at my response. This was 5 years ago, 2020. And I would come across something and I'd say, well, that isn't true at all. And why did I say this? And I don't feel that way about that. I had realized in putting together what I wanted to share with you this morning how much I had changed in the past 5 years and how completely different my ideas were. And this used to happen to me occasionally where I'd get what I call a spiritual download. It's like an aha, and it would happen every so often. But it seems to be happening to me on a regular basis. Almost every day, something inside of me is changing. Have you noticed this? So I believe that spirituality is accelerating, my friends, and I think that's good news. So unfortunately, I don't know if it's unfortunate, I'm not going to be able to share with you what I shared in 2020 because I don't believe a lot of it anymore. And I'm happy about that. I want to keep changing. Charles Fillmore, the co-founder, and many of you have heard these words, the co-founder of the Unity Movement back in the late 1800s with his wife Myrtle. And I think these might be the most important words he ever shared, and he shared a lot of precious gems with us. But these are the ones that I love the most. It was, I reserve the right to change my mind. It's so easy to get locked in, especially if we get a really good idea that resonates with us. It can be hard to let that go, can't it, Instead of realizing this is an ongoing journey and we are forever and continuously evolving, and not only is it a good idea to keep your mind open, it's essential. So you've heard me say before, never, ever, ever make up your mind. Not a good idea. Not a good idea. One of the things I noticed in the talk from 2020 was that I tend to, back in those days, deliver imperatives, like I would say, this is the way it is. Even in Unity, where we honor open-mindedness, I would say, well, this is the way it is, almost like I was trying to convince myself or you. And I've noticed that isn't the case anymore. Rather than speaking directives, as you know by now, because many of you have heard me speak, I offer proposals. And this to me is a huge shift from the old way I used to preach and teach, because I don't have that sense of, I've got something that you don't have and I'm going to impart this to you. I use the terminology we because we're all in this together. So it's like, you need to read the Bible, or you need to understand metaphysics and spirituality, or you need to appreciate the unity. I don't know what you need to do, okay? I don't. I haven't the foggiest idea, but I have every confidence, my friends, that you do know what to do. That there is a consciousness and intelligence within you that as we continually trust it more and more, it guides our steps. And it will guide our steps in ways that no other spiritual authority or anyone else can guide. Nobody can do this for us. It's a do-it-yourself project to create your own religion and then live in integrity with it and then allow it to evolve. Because there's danger and there's even harm in frozen mindsets. So, all that being said, now here's what I shared in today's modern rendition of what I shared in 2020. It's on spiritual healing, and I will say that I worked here for, as some of you know, many, many years at Unity Village, 26 years altogether before I left and went to field ministry. And I spent a number of years working in Silent Unity. That was an experience that began in 1983 for me. And I had many. There are obvious Unity leaders in the work today. But I'll tell you, Silent Unity was, and I'm sure still is, filled with great spiritual minds and hearts. And I learned a great deal from these people. And one of the things I was told early on is to remember that every prayer request is a request for healing, regardless of the package in which it arrives. So we may not think of it as healing because oftentimes we associate healing with the physical body. And this is that every request, whatever it is a request for healing. Every request then is an invitation for us to remember who and what we really are. And there's nothing going on in the world out here that isn't there for any other reason except to support you in remembering your spiritual identity and the truth of who you are in spiritual reality. It's the remembrance that all of us right now in this moment are whole spiritual beings. This isn't a goal you have to achieve. It's simply something to remember that you already are. It's not a contest. It's not a competition. The first proposal I want to share with you this morning is that the goal of healing is the remembrance of that which we already are. So when you're in a situation where you feel you need healing, physical healing, healing in a relationship, remember first and foremost, this is an opportunity for me to remember who and what I am and that I am already whole. We are not broken unless we believe we are. That's our decision. What do we believe ourselves to be? But we're not broken in spiritual reality. The world is not broken. Really? The world is not broken unless we believe that it is. Healing requires that somebody or something is not already whole and perfect just as they are. You with me on this? In other words, it's so important how we're interpreting ourselves, other people, and the world. Healing is the release of the belief in brokenness. The release of that belief. It's nothing more or less than a belief because everything is rooted in belief. You get an idea, then you invest it with your belief, your faith. It becomes an expression in your life. So healing is the release of our belief in brokenness, and it's the acceptance of the belief that in spiritual reality, and this is a big one, in spiritual reality, nothing needs to be fixed. Nothing needs to be repaired. Nothing needs to be improved. And nothing needs to be healed. So I guess there's really no reason for me to continue talking to you because I just told you nothing needs to be healed. Nothing is broken. Now that's a big one because it sure seems broken, doesn't it? And so as we look out into the material world, we see all kinds of things that need healing, right? I mean, we see them on the news every single day, and we see them in ourselves and other people. We see them in medical diagnosis. Things need to be healed. From that perspective, I want to share 3 methodologies with you this morning regarding the apparent need for healing in the world that we see with our human eyes and vision. And they are physical healing, mental healing, and spiritual healing. Now, these are just terms that I have made up. And in truth, I don't know that there's even that much difference between them. But for the sake of my conversation with you this morning, I'm going to use those three: physical, mental, and spiritual. And it starts simply with physical healing, the apparent repairing of physical form and matter. A bone gets broken, you go to the doctor, sets it in a cast, bone heals. Obviously, it's repaired and functional again. That is physical healing. Mental healing, and this is where Unity really excels in bringing an understanding of the power of mental healing. We're known around the world for this. It's the reprogramming of thought content in our own consciousness. And to do that in Unity, we utilize two tools: denial and affirmation. We speak the denial to ourselves first because we want to regain or retrieve the power that we have given to an idea that is not true. So we deny its ultimate reality and its truth. So in this sense, it could be something like, sickness has no power over me. Okay, so we're retrieving the power that we gave to a false idea so that we can further remember who and what we really are in spiritual reality. Then we follow that with the affirmation, which is a statement, a spoken statement usually, that we're going to put out that better reflects the spiritual nature of our ultimate reality. So the release or the denial, I like that word release sometimes better than denial, because denial has a certain psychological definition to it nowadays. You don't want to deny things. But you can release the idea, or release the idea that anything out there that is not true has any power over you. And then you can make the affirmation, sickness has no power over me whatsoever. And this is helping us then to become more aware of the content of our minds, the thought content of our minds and our consciousness, and make conscious choices. Realize when we don't feel spiritually centered, it's because we're listening to a voice that is trying to convince us that something is true when it is not. And there are many, 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 many voices out there that are seeking to do that right now. So it's like cleaning the house before you bring in anything new. You want to clean out that which is not rooted in spiritual reality and make way for that which is. And that's a beautiful way to experience healing in our lives, to be aware that our thoughts are creating our reality and that we have the task, if we choose to accept it, of mental housekeeping. Now, Jesus healed many times in the New Testament, and I know a lot of you are familiar with the different stories of those healings. The one that I want to emphasize this morning is found in the book of John, 5th chapter. This is the 6th verse. He comes across this fellow, and really take this in for a moment, who had been paralyzed for 38 years, laying by the pool of Bethesda. And Jesus walks up to him and says, anybody remember what Jesus says to him? Jesus says, "Oh my God, have you seen a doctor about this?" No, Jesus didn't really say that. Jesus said, "Scientific evidence based on 1,000 people with the same ailment indicates your chances for survival are slim to none." Doesn't sound too much like Jesus, does it? He said, "Hey, buddy, could I interest you in a multi-level sales marketing program featuring organically grown phytonutrients guaranteed to eliminate your fatigue and improve your libido?" I don't remember those words in the Bible. Jesus said, "Exercise 3 times a week, drink 3 gallons of water a day, eliminate smoking, alcohol, avoid sugar and sugar-free sweeteners." I don't think he said that. Jesus said, "Repeat after me 12 times. I am happy, healthy, whole, and free, exactly as God created me." I don't remember that in Scripture. Jesus said, "Let's consider feeling the experience fully and tracing it back to the error thought held in consciousness. Find a better and truer thought with which to replace it." I don't remember Jesus saying that. And finally, Jesus said, "Your physical condition is a clear indication of your lack of spiritual awareness." That's one we pull on ourselves, is it not? Sometimes metaphysical malpractice. If you were thinking right, if you were living right, this wouldn't be happening to you. Jesus didn't say any of that. And I'm not doubting any healing modality when I share those comical statements with you. I just believe Jesus healed differently. What he said to the paralyzed man, in fact, was, "Do you want to be healed? Do you want to be healed?" And for many of us, we would say, "Of course I want to be healed." We all want to be healed. What do you mean? Why would you ask me that question? Because, friends, it's been my personal experience that sometimes when I pray for something, if I'm perfectly honest, I don't always really want it. Or I don't want to have to engage in what I will need to engage in order for it to happen. Because if you want to be healed, you have to be willing to let go of whatever it is that is standing between you and the healing you are praying for or requesting. So this makes healing a wonderful opportunity. It makes challenge and difficulty a wonderful opportunity for us to go deeper into the reality of who and what we are in spiritual truth. It redefines what the mind has said is a problem. Myrtle Fillmore, the co-founder of the Unity Movement, once said, if I can remember this, "You only have one problem. It's in your mind, and you put it there." Thank you, Myrtle. Then Jesus said, "Rise, take up your pallet and walk." Now, how many of us really believe that a man who had been laying by the pool of Bethesda for 38 years paralyzed is going to be able to rise up and start walking? I believe that as we continue to do this work of remembering who we are and living in that remembrance, a number of very interesting things start to happen. Our consciousness is shifted in such a way that it not only impacts us as individuals, but it moves out into the world. I believe it was possible just to be standing in the presence of a man like Jesus Christ and be healed by virtue of the fact that his energy was so aligned with the reality, his knowing of who he was, that you could be healed in a moment just to be in that presence. It was that influential. And every one of us has that as we continue. Remember, Jesus said, you're going to do all this stuff and a lot more. It's because as we continue to remember and root ourselves in spiritual reality, and I'm going to say cast out or deny these things that we have given credibility to because we were conditioned to believe that they were true, let them go and become extraordinarily aware of the power that is within us when we do cast off the world of time and space and truly root ourselves in the spiritual nature of who we are. So I think it was possible that that man, in the presence of that consciousness that Jesus brought, and his willingness to say, and this is it, his willingness to say, I'll do whatever it takes. There's nothing that I want more than to remember who I am and bring it into the world, to be a contributing factor in changing the way all humanity sees things, responds to things, deals with things. You know, Jesus was not a medical doctor. Jesus was not a metaphysician. Jesus was not a minister. Jesus was not a therapist. However, he was one who knew how to see rightly, how to see things correctly. Eric Butterworth, one of the most renowned Unity ministers that ever lived, preached out of Avery Fisher Hall in New York City for years and years and wrote countless books. He said, don't make it right. See it right. Don't make it right. See it right. Jesus had the ability to see as God sees, I believe. And it's impossible for divine perfection to experience imperfection. You see, so it's a matter of allowing ourselves to be raised to that level where we cannot perceive imperfection. Physical and mental healing work are wonderful, but they tend to focus on symptoms, and symptoms dwell in time and space in the exterior world. Spiritual healing doesn't happen on the level of symptoms. The symptoms don't matter. The condition doesn't even matter from a perspective of spiritual healing. Spiritual healing works on the level of invisible, or what we would in today's world call quantum energy. It may come as a mental and physical healing, but not necessarily. You can receive a spiritual healing. It doesn't necessarily mean your body will change, but that's not the point. The point is to remember who you are. So I've known many people who have been spiritually healed, but it didn't mean their dis-ease or their discomfort left them. Spiritual healing is the remembrance and the realization of spiritual reality. Here's another proposal for you, Unity Village Chapel family. Spiritual healing is seeing self, others, and life as they really are in God's eyes. It's the ability to see as God sees. We have to open the way to receive this healing, but we can do it. There is something that Joel Goldsmith, the profound spiritual teacher, lecturer, author, once referred to as the great hypnosis. And we've wrestled with it, I think all of us, I certainly have all through my life. It's the belief that something is terribly wrong here. It doesn't matter what it is, just the hypnosis that we're under, or as Imelda Octavia Shanklin puts it in What Are You?, the spiritual amnesia that we are under right now is rooted in the belief that something is wrong here, and because something is wrong, there is a reason for concern. The moment we think something is wrong here, we're stepping out of divine vision, I believe. We have the ability to stay focused and centered, remembering God does not see wrong, lack, limitation, or illness. Remember, this is perfection, divine perfection. It's not even possible for it to perceive or to be aware of imperfection. That's something we're experiencing only because we have forgotten who we are. And Joel said in his book, The Infinite Way, spiritual work is not a patching up of the human scene. It is the understanding that what appears to us as a problem is a suggestion of a selfhood apart from God, having no more substance than the water on the desert. The understanding that what appears as a problem is but a suggestion of a selfhood apart from God. There is no selfhood apart from God. I shared with you the last time I was with you. That's a figment of your imagination. So how can we step out of the compelling appearances of time and space into remembrance? And the first step, I think, has come well worded from Unity co-founder Charles Fillmore when he said, the first step in all spiritual healing is to believe. It's to believe. And we have to honor our degree of belief in this, friends. 13 years ago, Karen will remember this, I was in Florida at Unity on the Bay in Miami, and I woke up one morning and my left knee just wouldn't work. It was just out of commission. It wasn't going to work. And it went on that way for days. I got some crutches, finally went to see an orthopedic surgeon, because I was aware that I was not united enough with my own spiritual reality to say to my knee, you are whole, blessed, and free, and really believe that that alone would heal it. So I went to see a doctor. The doctor put me on anti-inflammatories and a few other weird things that I later discovered were things I didn't really want to be putting in my body. So I took it then, being a good Unity student, from the physical level to the mental level, and it began to improve, but I was still walking around on those crutches. I remember Easter Sunday, I actually went onto the platform with these crutches, and I held them up in the shape of a cross. And I said, right now I'm hanging on a cross, but I am about to be resurrected. And then was when I came upon this work of Joel Goldsmith, wherein he was saying that the only reason I was having this experience was because I was believing in something other than the absolute spiritual reality from which I'd been created. Well, I'm not boasting any kind of miraculous healing here, but I will tell you it's the same knee. Nothing has been replaced. That orthopedic surgeon 13 years ago told me, you have 6 months and you're going to need a new knee. So call it what you will, and however it unfolds, something happened, and I was able to lay those crutches down. And my point is, sometimes it's a good idea, because Where is your belief? Do you believe? And to be honest with that, and sometimes it's a good idea to cover all your bases. Do the physical healing. Go see the doctor. I love that about Unity. We never tell you don't go get medical advice if that's what you feel you need and that's what you believe will help you. Go get it. So do the physical healing, do the mental healing, and allow the spiritual healing. Put them to work, all three at the same time. Charles Fillmore also went on to say, the next step, then, in this healing process is openness and receptivity to the stream of healing life. In other words, identify anything that might be standing in the way as resistance to your willingness. It's like, again, let go, let God. Let it all go, release it, and open yourself to what is always present, this stream of healing life. Involves relaxation and trust, non-resistance. Say to yourself, I am ready and willing to be healed. You can't make that statement if you're in fear of the next diagnosis. So fear is one of those things that we get to gently and lovingly release ourselves from. My final proposal for the morning is this. And this, of course, a lot of my fundamentalist friends take issue with. But being the good Unity minister that I am, I'm going to tell you regardless. We, you and I, we have the same capacity as Jesus. He didn't come to this planet for us to all bow down and worship him. He said, what I'm doing so that you can see that you also, like me, have the capacity to do it. To see beyond the level of human experience and appearance and say, I am not going to give this my power. I'm not going to give this time, form, space, and matter my power. I'm going to see things as God sees them. I'm going to start by seeing myself as God sees me. Yes, happy, healthy, whole, and free, exactly as God has created me. I'm going to see everyone that occupies space in my world as God sees. From God's view, my friends, there's nothing wrong with anything. We're talking about divine perfection here again. There is no sickness. There is no lack. I know it's hard to believe, but that's this process of remembrance, gradually, step by step, remembering and believing. From God's view, there is nothing to fear. From God's view, all is well here and now. So visit the doctor. Declare your affirmations and your denials. Then pray to see as God sees. God bless you.